The land was brittle under the sun. Grass burned to a pale husk, the horizon wavering in heat. Elias Ward rode slow along the fence line, his horse moving with the steady rhythm of habit. The ranch stretched wide around him, yet it felt smaller with every passing year. More fences broken, more pasture gone to dust, fewer reasons to keep fighting for what was left. He tipped his hat lower against the glare and pressed on. The silence broken only by the creak of saddle leather and the horse's heavy breath. At first, he thought the sound behind him was the wind dragging through brush. Then came the sharper rhythm, light and uneven, hooves too small to be anything grown. He turned in the saddle. A foal trailed after him, ribs sharp under its hide, head drooping with exhaustion yet eyes fixed forward, locked on him as though he alone carried some secret promise. Its legs wobbled, each step a test it had no right to win, but it pressed on, determined. Elias frowned, tugged the reins, and let his horse slow. "Go on now," he muttered, voice roughened by years of dust and solitude. "Ain't nothing for you here." The foal only kept on, pace quickening despite the tremble in its knees. He pulled to a full stop, waiting. The foal stopped too, no more than 20 paces back, and simply stood there, sides heaving. He shifted in the saddle, unsettled. He had seen plenty of wild ones break from their mothers, wandering till they found water or death. But this wasn't wandering. This was following, step for step, as though drawn by a string Elias couldn't see. The rancher clicked his tongue and spurred his horse forward. After a few strides he dared a glance back. Sure enough, the little thing stumbled after him again. "Lord help me," he muttered. For another mile he tried to ignore it. He hummed tunelessly, fixed his gaze on the distant barn, even clapped his hands to send it skittering. The foal flinched but didn't turn back. He stooped once, picked up a pebble, and tossed it lightly at the ground near its hooves. The stone struck dirt, raising a puff of dust. The foal froze, legs spread as if ready to bolt, then lifted its head, eyes wide, and came forward once more. Elias cursed under his breath. He had no patience for strays. Not anymore. Once, long ago, he would have scooped it up, found room in the pasture, fed it from his own hand if need be. But time had burned out that softness. His wife had been the one with the heart for wounded things. She had brought home a lame dog once, nursed a bird with a broken wing. She'd said every creature deserved a chance. When she passed, that part of the house went dark, and Elias had never lit it again. The foal tripped on a rut, nearly went down, and Elias caught himself leaning forward as though his reach could save it. It regained its footing and pressed on. The sight tightened something deep in him, something he thought he had buried alongside the cedar coffin on the hill. The sun slanted lower. Coyotes stirred on the ridge, gray shapes against the fading light. Their yips carried thin through the air. Elias pulled the rifle from its scabbard and fired into the sky. The crack echoed across the valley, scattering them into shadow. He didn't look back at the foal. He told himself he would have done the same if it had been a cow or nothing at all. By the time he reached the ranch gate, twilight had settled. He swung down stiffly, knees aching, and led his horse inside. Behind him came the faint scuff of smaller hooves. He shut the gate firm and turned. The foal stood just beyond, head lowered, body trembling. Dust clung to its lashes like frost. It wavered a step closer, pressed against the bars, then sank to its knees in the dirt. Elias gripped the top rail, jaw locked. He told himself this was not his fight. He had enough burdens, debts piled high, fences in ruin, a silence in his home that pressed down heavier than any storm. Another broken creature would only drag him deeper. But still he lingered, watching the small chest rise and fall, shallow but unyielding. The foal gave a faint, strangled whinny, thin as a thread of smoke, and it carried into the stillness. Elias closed his eyes. For a moment he could hear his wife's voice in the sound, gentle and insistent, the way she had once pleaded for him to keep faith with something fragile. He leaned against the post, shoulders heavy. "Don't make me do this again," he whispered to the wind. The foal did not stir. Only the silence answered, and the silence pressed him harder than any word could. Elias rose before dawn, as he always did, though sleep had been thin. He stepped onto the porch with his coffee tin and squinted into the gray light. The air was sharp, carrying the smell of dust and dew. Beyond the fence line, the foal still lay in the dirt where it had fallen. Its ears flicked weakly at the sound of his boots, but it did not rise. He muttered a curse, one meant for himself more than for the creature, and walked down with his cup steaming in his hand. The foal's eyes found him at once. Wide, dark, pleading. He saw a need there, yes, but something else too. Stubbornness, the kind that refused to die even when death circled close. Elias crouched near the fence. He told himself it was only curiosity, nothing more. Still, when he turned back toward the house, he set a bucket of water on the ground and left a scattering of oats just inside the wire. By mid-morning, he saw the bucket was empty. The foal stood shakily now, muzzle damp, bits of oat clinging to its chin. It bleated, a thin sound that cut sharper than it should. Elias's chest tightened. He carried on with his chores, hammering a loose board, checking the roofline, anything to keep his hands busy. But each time he looked up, the foal was there, watching through the rails, shadow-like against the pale light. The marks on its legs drew his eyes again and again. Scars where rope had burned deep, jagged lines along the hide that spoke of rough hands and cruelty. This wasn't some newborn lost in the wild. This one had been owned and abandoned. The thought stirred an anger in him, though he buried it quick. He knew the world had little kindness left for strays, and maybe less for men like him. That evening he sat by the corral, sharpening his knife in the fading glow. The scrape of steel against stone steadied him. The foal edged closer to the fence, step by uncertain step, until its muzzle brushed the wood. Elias did not move. He let the silence stretch, let the animal decide the distance. At last it lowered its head and stood there, trembling but unbroken. Elias turned the blade in his hand, caught his own reflection in the steel, and saw something raw he did not want to name. When darkness fell, he nearly closed the gate again. Instead, he left it ajar by an inch. He told himself it was habit, carelessness, nothing intentional. But when he woke in the dead of night and stepped out for air, he saw the foal standing inside the corral, still as stone, its eyes reflecting the starlight. It had crossed the line he'd drawn, and he could not bring himself to push it back out. In the days that followed, a quiet rhythm took shape. Elias worked the ranch with the foal trailing just out of reach. He did not call to it, did not give it a name, but he stopped trying to drive it away. He left hay where the ground was softest. He placed the bucket nearer the barn. The creature came and went with the patience of shadow, yet always returned. One afternoon, as he patched a section of fence, memory rose like dust from the earth. His wife's voice, clear and unshaken, drifted through him. She had said once, "Every broken thing just wants a place to rest." She'd been the one who carried the gentleness in their home, the reason strays had found shelter under their roof. He had resisted her kindness then, not because he lacked it, but because it frightened him. To care was to risk breaking, and he had broken enough. He set down the hammer and turned. The foal stood behind him, no more than a few steps away now, ears pitched forward, eyes bright despite the thinness of its frame. For a moment, Elias felt the stillness of the world close around them, heavy and intimate, as though the land itself waited. He reached down for the bucket, poured what water was left, and set it between them. The foal moved closer, tentative, and dipped its head. The sound of it drinking filled the silence. Elias rested his hand against the fence rail. He did not reach further. He did not need to. The sky shifted to gold. He watched the foal lift its head, muzzle glistening, eyes locking with his. There was no fear there anymore, only a quiet persistence. Elias swallowed hard, the scrape in his throat rough as gravel. He turned away before the moment could deepen, but his hand lingered on the rail. The foal followed, as it always did, hooves pressing into the earth with the steadiness of a vow. Words spread faster than Elias expected. A trip into town for nails and feed was all it took. He heard the talk in the store, men leaning against the counter with smirks tugging at their lips. "Ward's gone soft," one muttered, loud enough for him to hear. "Took in a runt foal, half dead and no use to anyone. Guess loneliness makes a man foolish." Laughter followed, low and sharp, the kind that didn't fade quickly. Elias kept his back straight, paid for what he came for, and left without a word. But their voices trailed him, sinking deep where silence used to live. Back at the ranch, the foal shadowed him as always, moving steadier now on mended legs. Its scars hadn't vanished, but they no longer defined the creature. Still, Elias heard those men in his head. Maybe they were right. He had no business nursing something that had already been cast aside. His ranch needed strength, not another mouth. He told himself all this while his hands spread hay, while his eyes found the foals, and while something wordless passed between them that unsettled every argument he tried to make. That night, clouds rolled heavy over the horizon. Lightning flashed, distant but approaching. Elias tied down loose shutters, checked the roofline, and fastened the corral gate with fresh rope. The air thickened, charged with storm. When the rain finally came, it came hard, pounding against the earth, turning soil to mud in minutes. The foal panicked. Its thin body slammed against the rails, eyes rolling white, whinnies sharp with terror. Elias grabbed his lantern and ran, boots sinking deep in the muck. "Easy," he called, voice steadier than he felt. The foal bucked again, striking wood hard enough to splinter. He dropped the lantern at the edge, light swinging wildly, and pushed inside the corral. Rain drenched him through, cold as knives, but he moved closer, arms wide, words spilling low and constant. "It's only thunder. You're all right. I've got you." The foal shuddered, legs slipping. Elias reached for a blanket he'd dragged from the barn, tossed it over the trembling back, and pressed his hand firm against its neck. He could feel the hammer of its heartbeat, frantic and wild. Slowly, the animal sagged against him, head lowered, body quaking but no longer fighting. Elias held it there, his chest tight, breath raw. The storm raged on. But in that moment the corral felt like the only world that mattered. Then the rope gave. A fence post snapped under the weight of water and wind, and the foal bolted through the gap, blanket trailing, hooves splashing mud into the night. Elias stumbled after it, cursing, pain shooting down his leg where an old injury throbbed. The lantern lay behind him, its light shrinking. He pressed forward anyway, rain blinding, ground sucking at his boots. He followed the sound, the desperate clatter of hooves on sodden earth. Branches whipped at his face. He slipped, fell hard, then pushed up again, lungs burning. At last he saw the foal tangled in a ditch, barbed wire coiled around its legs, thrashing helplessly. Its cries tore through the storm, raw and jagged. Elias dropped to his knees, mud swallowing his weight. His hands went to the wire, heedless of the cuts it made, pulling, twisting, forcing it loose. Each tug drew blood, but he kept on, gritting his teeth against the sting. "Hold still, damn it," he muttered, though his voice cracked softer, breaking toward a plea. "Don't quit on me now." The foal quieted, exhaustion overtaking panic. Its body trembled under his touch. Elias freed one leg, then another, until at last the wire fell away. The foal lay collapsed in the ditch, sides heaving, too weak to rise. Elias pressed his palm against its damp flank, his breath ragged, chest aching. "I can't lose you too," he whispered, the words spilling out before he could stop them. They hung there, swallowed by rain but undeniable. He felt the truth of them cut deeper than the wire had. The foal blinked up at him, eyes reflecting the storm's fleeting light. For a heartbeat, it seemed to understand, to answer in silence. Elias stayed there, rain streaming down his face, hands steady on the fragile body beside him, and knew the choice he had been resisting was already made. Dawn broke in a haze of pale light, soft and merciful after the storm's fury. Elias had not slept. He sat in the barn with the foal stretched on a bed of hay, its legs bandaged, its breathing shallow but steady. The smell of wet earth clung to everything, mixed with the sharp tang of iron from his own bloodied hands. His back ached, his eyes burned, yet he remained at the foal's side, unwilling to move more than a few feet away. He had told himself it was duty, simple responsibility after dragging the creature from the ditch. But the truth pressed heavier. He could not bear to leave it alone. As the light grew stronger, Elias noticed something he had not before. Beneath the damp, matted coat along the foal's shoulder, a faint scar curled into the skin. He brushed the hair aside, fingers trembling, and froze. A brand mark, faded, but clear enough to see. His heart thudded, each beat echoing through him. He knew that mark. It was the emblem once used by his late wife's kin, burned into cattle and horses on their land before the fire took it all. Her brother's ranch had been sold off, scattered. He had thought every trace of it was gone. Yet here, before him, lay a living remnant. The weight of recognition crushed him. His breath left in a shudder, and for the first time in years, tears burned his eyes without warning. He gripped the edge of the stall, knuckles white, as memory rushed over him. His wife's laughter, her soft hand guiding his own when she taught him how to calm a nervous colt, the way she insisted every creature deserved a chance. The foal shifted weakly, its head resting against his boot, as though it had chosen him all along. Elias bowed his head, the dam inside him breaking. "You came back," he whispered, voice fractured, words barely sound. "She sent you back, didn't she?" He buried his face in his hands, shoulders shaking. For years he had locked every fragile piece of himself away, convinced the world only took what he loved. Yet here was proof of something else, a thread of her carried forward, refusing to vanish. The foal breathed softly against his leg, grounding him in the present, tethering him to a truth he could no longer deny. The days that followed were marked by quiet labor. Elias tended the foal with a care that surprised even him. He fed it warm mash, changed its wrappings, brushed its coat until the dullness gave way to a faint sheen. He spoke little, but when he did, his voice carried gentleness that had long been absent from his speech. The foal grew stronger, its legs steadier, its eyes brighter. Where once it stumbled, now it followed with sure steps, never far from his side. Neighbors came by, curious, some still smirking. Others softened into silence at the sight. They watched Elias lead the foal across the pasture, steady hand resting on its neck. The laughter faded, replaced by nods, murmurs of respect they did not voice aloud. Elias paid them no mind. His world had narrowed to this bond, this fragile yet unyielding connection that stitched closed something torn inside him. One evening, as the sun bled gold across the sky, Elias stood at the fence and watched the foal graze. Its coat caught the light, scars still visible, yet no longer defining. He felt a calm settle over him, unfamiliar yet welcome. The ache in his chest eased, not gone but changed, transformed into something he could carry. He thought of his wife, of the way she had named things for what they meant rather than what they were. Slowly, with care, he gave the foal a name. "Grace," he said aloud, the word steady, resonant in the quiet air. The foal lifted its head at the sound, ears twitching, as though it understood. Elias leaned on the fence, eyes damp, and let the silence embrace him. For years he had lived as though nothing returned once lost, as though grief carved out a hollow that stayed empty forever. Now, watching Grace step lightly across the pasture, he knew better. Not everything broken was gone. Some things found their way back. Not as they were, but as they were meant to be. When the last of the lights slipped behind the hills, Elias turned toward the porch. Grace lingered near the fence, her small frame etched against the fading glow. He paused, letting the sight etch itself into memory, a promise he would not turn from. For the first time in years, he felt a future stretching out ahead of him, uncertain yet alive with possibility. And as the crickets began their chorus and night folded gently over the land, Elias carried with him the quiet truth that love, once given, never truly vanished. It only waited, patient as a foal in the dust, until a man was ready to see it again.